My name is Julian Shaw. Welcome to the rice breeding stop here. I have been a medium grain rice breeder here for the last 8+ years. Stand next to me is Dr. Christian de Guzman.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christian de Guzman. I'm the long grain rice breeder in the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. We welcome you to the 2021 Arkansas Rice Field Day here in the breeding stop. Let me tell you something about myself. I joined the University of Arkansas last year, September, taking over the breeding program from Dr. Karen Moldenhauer. I previously worked as a Missouri rice breeder, and I would say that I am extremely fortunate to lead this breeding program from the distinguished professor and very successful rice breeder, Dr. Moldenhauer.
Today we will present you our University of Arkansas System Division Ag rice variety lineup, and also the varieties released by the other university and also private companies like Rice Tech. Then we're going to give you a brief this introduction of potential lines in the pipeline to be released in next year or two. First, let me start with the long grain. Diamond released in 2016 has been the predominant conventional long grain variety in the state last 3-4 years in a row. Performed really strong, got a good yield potential, got a very stiff straw, got fair milling yields. Also have a very good grain quality, which is preferred by the rice mills. Then next to that, with the newcomer, the Jewel, released last year. Yield-wise, very comparable compared to the Diamond, but do have the advantage of the milling yields, much improved the milling yields, especially the head rice yield, and also has a PETA for blast resistance, and the amylase contents of 25%, which also a plus performed by the merchandiser. You're probably going to see the two commercial releases from the Arkansas, including ProGold 1 and the ProGold 2. ProGold 1 also has a PETA for blast resistance. Both 1 and 2 have the comparable yields compared to the Diamond. The next one you will see is Dyna-Gro 263. You heard that quite a bit. It's quite a bit of acreage being grown in the state. This is the first variety developed by Nutrien, the company from Texas. You can see it's a semi-dwarf plant type, extremely early. Early yield data from Gulf Coast is showing up very promising. Not only the yields, but also the milling yields, not only the grain yield. Also in the pipeline, we have two potential release possibly next year or two. The first one is 20AR 185. This is a long grain line developed from the cross between Diamond and Lacaste. The line is about 2 days earlier in maturity compared to the Diamond. It also have very stiff straw. Milling will be a slight improvement over Diamond. Lodging is very similar. It's a lack of PETA for blast resistance, but overall it's not too susceptible. We may be looking at an increase in later fall in Puerto Rico, maybe have a foundation seed grow here next year. The other line I'd like to mention to you is 21AR 211. This is a semi-dwarf conventional long grain line. It's showing very good potential in our last season yield trial. We're going to look very close. Hopefully we're going to have a semi-dwarf long grain, make it available to you in next year or two. Then we're going to switch gear to the Clearfield, the herbicide technology Clearfield long grain. In the lineup, we have CLL15. This is a variety released 2 years ago. Last year, because the hurricane, the tropical storm did have some issue with the Cercospora, We hope this year the weather gonna be normal, so the potential will show up. Next to that is a Clearfield, new Clearfield variety developed here. It's a CLL16. You can see it's a very similar plant type compared to the diamond. Yield potential wise, got a PETA for blast resistance. Milling yields very comparable to diamond. Maturity maybe 3 days later compared to the diamond. Also have a stiff straw, very beautiful cones. Next to that, gonna be semi-dwarf Clearfield long grain recently released from LSU. It's a CAL17. Extremely early, more like CAL111 in the maturity. The yield data so far, I got a preliminary yield data from the Gulf Coast showing very promising. Then we have a couple of potential we are looking very closely.
Yes, we have one potential line. It's the 20AR093. This is one of the highest yielding Clearfield line on that segment. The yields about 217 bushels per acre. That's about 10 bushels more than diamond based on our statewide test last year. But it's still at an early stage. We just tested it last year and we are continuing to test it this year and perhaps another year next year. But we do have some breeder hedgerows planted already for that, just in case we wanted to speed up the process. Another potential line that we're looking at is 16AR010. This is a conventional long grain line. It has been tested for several years, and what we found out is this is the most stable line that we had. So over the years and over different locations, we had this line perform really well and stable. It is a typical long grain and also has a good milling yield, a little bit better, slightly better than diamond.
On the Clearfield potential, we also looking at a semi-dwarf line, which not showing behind me, but we do have a trial across the Middle South, not only in Arkansas. The line we call the 20AR121. This line actually, the semi-dwarf, true semi-dwarf, got a yield advantage over CL15 and a CL17. Also had a PETA for blast resistance. Based on the molecular marker research, is showing the resistance to Cercospora, which suddenly became a problem here last year. We hope this new thing will provide the defense against this new diseases. Anyways, switch gear to the Clearfield medium grain. We released the CLM04 2 years ago. We're still working tirelessly with Kellogg's, with the Horizon Ag. Hopefully we can get approved next year before you plant your rice. CLM04 got a very good yield potential, a Clearfield. It's comparable to a non-Clearfield like Jupiter or Titan. Milling is excellent. It's not only good but also stable. When you harvest a little bit late, or very dry, low moisture contents, more like Jupiter. Then we're looking at a line which is showing promising, is 18AR238. This is a Clearfield medium grain 3 years trial. We're showing a yield advantage of about 10 bushels compared to the CM04, better than Jupiter. But we're still working closely with BASF and Horizon Ag. I tried to moving forward with this line. It's their final stage to release commercially. Switch gear to another herbicide technology we call the ACCA chemistry, which BASF they call the Pavizia, Rice Tech called the Max Ace. So we have two varieties behind me. One is this PVL03. This is a new release from LSU, marketed by Horizon Ag. PVL03 compared to the first generation PVL102 definitely have the yield potential improvement. Also have very stable yields in our trial. Got a PETA for blast resistance. Also have much improved the milling and the grain quality. I guess they have small acreage in the production, which is looking very promising. Next to it is the Rice-Tech's commercial pure line, not a hybrid, it's called the Max Ace, which is showing excellent yields in last year. But the Max Ace, you know, they cannot spray with the Pavisia, have to spray with the High Guard, the chemical they're marketing through the Adamant. Then after that, we're looking at a line from Arkansas, which is called the 21 AYT 15-3. We came into the game breeding for Pavisia rice about 7 years later than LSC, several years later than Rice-Tech. We got an agreement signed in 2019. 25 months later, we have a line in the field, looking really promising. We're gonna waiting for the yields data come in, gonna decide, maybe have a small increase, purification in Puerto Rico. Possibly we can have a foundation seed grow here next year. Last but not least, we're going to talk about a medium grain. In the lineup, we have the new release called the Lynx. We released it last year. Lynx being trialed 3 years in the advanced year trial, both Arkansas and across the Middle South. Over 50 to 60 different trials showing the yield advantage over both the Jupiter and the Titan by about 10 bushels per acre. It's consistent yield. The quality-wise is very good, low chalk. I got a big plump conos, which are preferred by the end user. We went through 2 pilot scale trial by Kellogg's. Both turned out to be positive. They are eager to go in their factory run. Hopefully, I'm going to work out with the Riceland or producers. Maybe get enough rice. They need 2 rail cars. That's about 2,000 hundredweight meal rice to send to their facility in Memphis.
I would like to add Dr. Shah.
Okay.
We have the aromatic breeding program. Miss Debbie Wisdom, she's an aromatic rice breeder. And 2018, we released Aroma 17. And it's a very good variety. It yields about 167 bushels per acre, and the quality is the typical aromatic. We do have one potential or candidate line in the aromatic rice segment. This is the 19AR231. It yields almost identical to Aroma 17. The difference is that this line has slightly bigger grains than Aroma 17, and it cooked a little bit firmer texture compared to that. So it's I believe one of the differences, and maybe it's going to be a different market segment.
Yeah, come back and talk about medium grain. Conventional medium grain, we also have a line which in the close look, hopefully potential release next year or 2. This is a 19AR033. Last year in the ARPT, the highest yielding, other than a few Rice-Tech hybrids, beat several Rice-Tech hybrids, average yield 225 bushels per acre, compared to 198 for Titan. So it's about over 10% significant yield increase. We're very excited about this. Got a very low chalk. It's a true semi-dwarf. And also got a very big cono. Before I close that, I'd like to mention our hybrid rice breeding program, which we have put a great efforts in. We made some progress. Behind me, we do have a line we're looking at, experimental hybrids. It's called the 11X185. This is 2-line hybrids. Last year performing really well at a clay soil in Kaiser. We hope this one going to be standing out this year. But meanwhile, we are actively working on other new lines. We try to put them out next several years.
We would like to say thank you to the Arkansas Rice Research and Promotion Board for their continued funding and support, to the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture, and to the Rice Research Station staff and crew that is giving their best and hard work on this breeding program.
Thank you for your attention. Hope to see you again next year.